morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. Welcome back to another episode of the Since I Was Young podcast for all things Heart or Midlothian, the gift that keeps on giving. That is right. Another two defeats last week, which has been quite a start for us. Obviously, we will go a bit into the first leg of the Europa League knockout qualifying round against Victoria Pleasant, where we suffered a very disappointing, literally last kick of the game, 1-0 defeat in the first leg to take back to Tynecastle this coming Thursday. So we will talk a bit about that. And to make things even more better, Andy Halliday's team have beaten us away at Fir Park, where we suffered again another defeat at the hands of Motherwell, 3-1. So we will talk about that in bulk. And to wrap it off as well, we will talk about, as I just mentioned there, the returning leg at Tynecastle against Victoria Pleasant. So we will wrap things up with that, and we do hope you're all good and well. So as always, guys, if you haven't subscribed to the Since I Was Young podcast via our YouTube page, please think about subscribing. And if you haven't checked out our usual socials as well and Spotify, please feel free to do so. All links will be in the description as always. So Alan, hope you're all good and well as well. So yeah, it's things just seem to be getting better and better this year. Not had a win as of yet since the season kicked off, and that includes also pre-season friendlies as well, just to make matters worse. So just as a kind of a bulk like sort of view, just in terms of the two games that have passed both in Europe and domestically as well. You know, we played like, I wouldn't say we played like sort of particularly well against Motherwell. I thought prior to that, when we played in the Czech Republic last Thursday, I thought we actually played relatively well up until a point. Me personally, I thought to take a 0-0 draw back to Tynecastle would be just as good as a win. And unfortunately, it literally was, as I said, the last kick of the game in such a really tough goal to actually take. But, you know, we like it is what it is. So just to start off with the Europe tie, what did you make of it? I thought it was, I wouldn't go as far to say as it was a surprise, but it was a nice surprise to see Craig Gordon start between the sticks as well. I believe that was his 23rd appearance for Hearts in Europe, which was a nice stat to actually see. So, what did you make of the events that unfolded out in the Czech Republic last Thursday, my man?
Think it was one of those, like we said going into it, that a narrow loss or a draw would have been sort of preferred if we weren't going to win the game. But from like what Naismith was saying and the players were saying, they were going over there to try and win, which obviously you'd want to, of course. But yeah, like you say, it was nice to see Gordon in goal. I think that's something that, in amongst all the disappointment of the season so far, I think Craig Gordon being in goal is a big positive. He made some saves against Pilsen that, I'm not saying Xander Clark doesn't make them, but it was just very, very nice to see Gordon making them. And he did the same against Motherwell as well, but we'll touch on that after. But
Mm.
yeah, I don't really know what to make of the Pilsen game because, like, obviously the season so far has been so kind of underwhelming, and I'm saying that, which is ridiculous because I'm only saying that this early in the season. We went over to Pilsen clearly with a game plan, and we actually looked quite like good, which sounds kind of surprising to say it, but I felt like it was similar to the Rangers game in the sense that, like, when we had the ball, we tried to do things with it, and when we didn't have the ball, we did look organised and we did look very kind of composed, and it was almost like the plan that we had was working. So that was nice to see. But then you couple that with other games that we played this season so far, and you wonder, night and day which Hearts is going to turn up next game. You know, that's
Mm.
the point, the lack of kind of consistency. But in terms of the Pilsen game in general, I thought it was it was a typical European away tie. Like we saw them last year as well. Like it took us a bit of time to get going in the game. It took us a bit of time to kind of find our feet in it. And I think I'm sure it was Shankland that said in an interview after it that the first sort of 10, 15 minutes of these games are always quite tricky because you're getting used to your surroundings, getting used to who you're playing against. And obviously because we don't play that caliber of team every week, it's difficult. Which is fair enough. But yeah, I thought as the game went on, we kind of grew into it.
And in that same sense as well, because like just as much as the Pilsen did, like I thought that we had quite a few good chances ourselves. I'm sure you mentioned it that Shanklin had quite a few. Vargas as well with that explosive speed. Again, it's just not kind of taking those chances at the most critical time. I mean, just to kind of like not come off the Pilsen game, but just as a whole, we touched on it last week as well, where do you think it's maybe just more down to the fact that Naismith doesn't know his best team yet? Because even though the squad sheets that we're seeing before the actual game, we've not had in terms of the team itself, we've not kind of overhauled massively in the sense that we've sold so many players and then we've got so many players in to replace them. Like the spine of the team, it's still relatively the same. Now, do you just kind of put that down to, again, us saying the word experimenting, but just with this new bulk of players that we've got, do you think, it's that that kind of old saying, like sort of was it like that like was it circular pegs and square holes? Is that the right saying?
I mean, it should be. It should be. Round pegs and square holes, or square pegs and round holes. One of those.
Same thing.
Basically, the pegs aren't going in the right places.
The
Put it that
pegs
way.
aren't going in regardless. But saying that though, like I mean, do you think that it is just down to actually that, or because obviously fans have their right to say what they think. Obviously, there's been a slow pace of the Naismith outs, this and that, and I agree with you. I mean, it's far too early in the season to be calling it that. Like we're still in August as well now.
Yeah.
Just to kind of put the Motherwell game into that context as well, and the start we've had. Do you think it's all down to that, or do you feel as if Naismith, just to throw it in there, this is not what I think, but do you think Naismith is maybe starting to get found out a wee bit in terms of, does he actually know how he wants to play, the players, etc., that he's brought in? Is it him specifically that has brought in those players, etc.? Where's your head on that?
I think Naismith is learning as he goes, and I think we have to remember that he is still a very young manager when it comes to like first team level. He had last season, and we did very well last season, and he took credit for that, which he should have, to be fair. But I think as well, like you, I've heard all the Naismith out nonsense, and I can't get I can't get behind it. I can understand why people are saying what they're saying, and I get it, but the harsh reality is it's not going to happen. So people need to kind of just sit on it for now, to be honest. Which they might not like to hear, but ultimately it's not going to happen. They've just given his coaching staff new long-term contracts, so he's not going anywhere. And the same people that are saying it now would have been saying it, at this time last season as well. So we don't start seasons well. It seems to be a thing with the European campaign as well. It's obviously had a bit of focus on that also. And it is tough. It is tough. Like it must be very, very difficult to balance both, domestic football, European football, and keeping everybody happy. And I know, I said it before about Naismith, that he needs to find an 11 players that he can trust and just use them. And then, if that means that some of the new players aren't picked, well, they've got to fight to get in. That I said that before, and I still feel that, but I don't blame Naismith for doing what he's doing. I think, you could even look at the Falkirk game in the League Cup and look at that game and say, well, yes, he experimented, yes, he mixed the team up a bit, but there was enough experience and quality in that team to win that game. So the players do have to take a large part of the blame also. Naismith said after the game against Motherwell that, we weren't good enough in both boxes and individual errors are costing us. And if you look at all of the goals we've conceded this season, it's been as a result of an individual error. And that's not like there's only so much that Stephen Naismith can do in that sense, is what I'm saying. When the players cross the line, it's up to them to kind of take responsibility and do their jobs. And I saw somebody say the other day that perhaps they're being overcoached, and maybe there's something in that. But yeah, I think there's faults at both sides, and I think both sides need to learn very quickly about it. But ultimately, the biggest positive that I can say is we've now got 2 home games. Obviously, we've got home against Pilsen on Thursday, and then home against Dundee United on Sunday. So going back to Tynecastle, hopefully it gives us a bit of a boost again, and we get back to kind of getting some wins. But yeah, I'm not going to sit here and wave a nazy out flag, at least for the foreseeable future. I do think, however, a big part of it that we're maybe not privy to is the behind the scenes stuff. Obviously, Savage left, and we know how much Joe Savage did at the club. And we don't know in his absence who's doing those jobs. Maybe Naismith and his team have taken some of those jobs on. We don't know that. So maybe there has been more responsibility put on the shoulders of Stephen Naismith, and that is maybe causing him to, I'm not saying lose focus, but maybe that's an element of it.
Yeah, and it's like as you said, like there's always things that we're not actually privy to, into how much work goes into being the manager, like as well, because obviously, I mean, it was very privy to, well, sorry, not so privy to everybody when Craig Levine that came out and said, "I shall be doing both jobs, and I will make sure I will fuck it up royally." But I mean, just going back um to, to the Pilsen game, like as we mentioned as well, like Craig Gordon made some great saves again. Just to see that as well, like it warms my heart. And there's some aspects where I thought we did deserve to come out with a draw. Like I thought we did, like in large spells of the actual game, I thought we did defend quite well. Like you're talking about individual errors as well. Even the goal, I wouldn't say it's on anybody. It was just it was just a in your words, it was such a sucker punch goal, and even when the goal went in, and you seen Gordon's the reaction just lying on the floor, like it tells itself. So we can kind of merge like the look ahead to the second leg. But do you think that maybe it'll be interesting to actually see in the return, like this Thursday, whether the certain section of fans who are like really frustrated at this moment, if if they will back the team fully, in the sense of what I mean by that is that if there's a if there was a mistake early on in the game from us, if the squad selection doesn't look to the kind of better in that sense. I know that's such a simple word to use, but if he sees that, if he's using the like a majority of the same players he used against Pilsen in the first leg, who knows, that might not go down too well, etc. So, what are your feelings in terms of of the second leg? Because much like we did against Zurich a few seasons ago, even though we were a goal down in the time, we came down absolutely flying. And from what I saw, it was one of the best atmospheres up until a point I had ever seen at Tynecastle.
Yeah. I think this is the thing. I think I remember. I can't remember if it was before the game or after the game. I think it might have been before it. The Victoria Pilsen manager was talking about getting the tie done in the first leg because in their league in their country they don't encounter many stadiums like Tynecastle with the sort of tightness to the pitch and the fans right on top of you and the atmosphere that we can generate. It's something that doesn't happen often enough for me, but we can generate an atmosphere when we need to. Um, so there's obviously an element from their side that they're looking at it going, maybe they'll come over here thinking 1-0 might not be enough. So it'll be interesting to see how the game goes. But I think you're right. I think the way that things are right now, I'm not going to say it's toxic or whatever because I don't think it is, but I think the atmosphere, if we don't start well and if we don't get in their faces right from the beginning, could be awkward. Because we know how big a game this is, but then the flip side of that, and this is kind of where I'm sort of judging it, if we turn it around against Victoria Pilsen on Thursday and we go through and we're in the Europa League, that's amazing. If we don't and we go out, it's still Conference League football. So, in as much as I'd love the Europa League because it means we've won and we're through and we're in it, and we spoke about it last week, Conference League is not that bad in terms of an alternative. We are in Europe regardless, and maybe that's me, being a happy clapper and putting my heart's tinted sunglasses on. But ultimately, it is a game that is winnable. Sorry, my camera's just decided to go a bit funny there. I don't know what's happened. There we go. We're back. But it's going to be interesting to see how the game starts. I think that's how we're going to know kind of straight off the bat how much we're up for it because the players will have to be.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Alan. And I won't. I mean, we didn't. I mean, that's maybe the reason why we lost because we didn't do a score prediction last week. But we can leave that till the end when we mentioned the Dundee United game as well. So just to move things back domestically, you know, again, as we said, like, I mean, all it generally can take is for that one win just to boost confidence and morale in the team tenfold. But it still doesn't seem to be coming anywhere. As I said, 3-1 loss against Motherwell. Again, those kinds of teams, as we touched on it time and time again last year, the away record was like absolutely fantastic, the best that we'd seen in years. And then taking that into Sunday's game against Dundee United as well, and we touched on this during the week as well, where whenever Naismith does a post-match interview where we've lost, I know again, like being in the mindset of a manager as well, there's only so many different reasons you can give as to why your team lost. But when it comes down to Naismith, a lot of the recurring theme seems to be, like the boys and the setup weren't like so intact. Critical chances in the final third, etc. Sloppiness, etc. Again, do you put that down to like a lot of the team being new? Naismith having a lack of steam into the team in terms of like getting them hyped up, etc. Where do you think this whole kind of start, or like try to say more kind of negative start, has came from, and where do you think we need to actually improve to actually get that first win and then crack on from there?
I think again, like I've spoken about this before. I think the problem comes from the fact that we're just not doing it in either of the boxes at the moment. Defensively, we're making silly mistakes that we didn't make last year. And going forward, we're just not finding the target. Like we're getting chances, but they're very few and far between. And it is an issue. It is an issue because obviously if you're not defending well but you're scoring goals, it balances out. But if you're not scoring goals and you're not defending well, then you're not going to get anything. realistically. You've got to have at least one of the two if you can try. Um, but yeah, like against Motherwell, like again, it was individual errors again, two set piece goals and a horrendous back pass from Salazar, who I thought wasn't actually that bad during the game. It was his debut as well. So,
Mhm.
there was something to be said for that. But, it's like I say, if you've not got the balance between a forward line that's scoring goals and a defence that's not conceding them, you're kind of in a bit of bother. Things from the Motherwell game that frustrated me, it was, and people were saying it, and they were absolutely spot on. It was like watching Robbie Nielsen Hearts again,
Mm.
and it was the slow sideways nature of things, and it's your favorite thing, so I'm not going to steal it from you, but there was just nothing. There was no tempo. There was no energy, and Motherwell had all of that. I think that was the biggest concern for me. It also didn't help that our record goal scoring number 9 decided he wanted to be a defensive midfielder and take the ball off the goalkeeper at every opportunity rather than be a number 9. But again, Shanklin likes to roam when things aren't going for him. He likes to go and try and find the ball himself, which he's done before. But there needs to be an element of keep your striker at the top end of the pitch, and the ball will get to him. The ball will find him. It's it kind of I can understand, like I say, I can understand why Shanklin does it because he wants to be involved and he feels like he's the captain, he should be making things happen, and if nobody else is, he's going to do it. But who's he making things happen for? Because there's nobody at the upper end of the pitch where he
Mm.
should be. So that kind of that's where that falls apart. But it is what it is, and like I say, I think Naismith has his faults. We said last season, or I'm sure Naismith said last season, about the need to take more risks with the ball. And I think an element of it this season so far is we've just not done that. We're coming up against teams that are happy for us to have possession and just let us play. Like Motherwell did it. We had all the possession of the ball, but we couldn't do anything because Motherwell just sat in and defended. I think where we are right now is a side that are good against a certain kind of team, i.e., a Rangers, because we let them have the ball. If teams let us have the ball, it's almost like okay, we have to do something and we don't really know what to do and we can't break through, etc. But yeah, it's there's lots of concerning things, but at the same time, there's nothing like a win. A win would just release so much of the nerves and the tension and the anger, I
Mm.
believe, in the fan base. It would be right. We've got to win. Let's keep going. Everybody's talking about Aberdeen being 8 points ahead of us already. Do you know what? Fair play to them. They don't have
Aye.
European football this season, hence why they are where they are. They've also got a very favourable fixture list until I think it's at least October. So, that'll balance out as well. So, again, call me a happy clapper, call me whatever you like, but I'm not panicking right now because I look at us and I go, we do have a good team. There are a lot of new players that need to maybe settle in and then take more risks. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe a Blair Spittle or a Yandanda don't want to take a risk because they think if I do, I'll be out if I get it wrong. It's a delicate balance, and I think last season we saw the players grew in as the season went on, and I still think like that will happen this season. But obviously, early signs are not particularly good.
True on that, and like you're talking about just getting that first win, and we can take it like to the um Dundee United home tie. Do you think that's a favourable tie that we can win? And I know I'm saying this early in the season, but you know, being at home, you know, Dundee United being the newly promoted side as well. It's not to underestimate them, but like it's just to kind of throw that in there as well. Regardless of the Pilsen result, you know, it is obviously a tie that we can win, but you're saying that you're not concerned right now. Would you be more concerned if we didn't come out that with at least a win?
I have said this to a few people. I will not be concerned until after the first round of fixtures.
Hmm. All right.
Once I've seen us play the first round of fixtures, then I'll look back and go, right, let's see where we are. I'm not, as I say, I'm not going to then go down to Tynecastle and hang out, lazy out bed sheets if we are where we are right now. But there will be signs of concern. And I think, we saw last season with the board, they didn't panic when things were not going particularly well. And there was noise against Naismith last season. The board didn't panic and they said, look, give it time. And they gave it time and it worked out in the end. I think Dundee United will be a difficult game because we've just obviously going to have come off the back of a Thursday night game. We've always said, the weekend, the midweek to weekend games are always going to be tricky. So it's going to be about how we navigate them. It'll be interesting to see what happens on Thursday. I think that's the biggest one for me. Annoyingly, I was reading that Pilsen, the Czech Republic FA, cancelled their weekend tie that they were due to play in the league to allow them more preparation time for us on Thursday. The SFA would never do anything like that for us. Let's be honest on that. But I mean that would be helpful. That would be helpful. But obviously, it is what it is. But yeah, like I think. I mean, I'm sitting here. I think the Pilsen game is a game that we could get something. I think I look at them and I don't think they're as good as I maybe thought they were, or maybe as I gave them credit for. They have been a recent European Europa Conference League quarter finalist. As I said last season, they lost to Fiorentina, and they're not a bad team. But I think maybe they were hyped up a little bit more than we perhaps thought, or maybe in reality they're not actually as good as we thought they were. But yeah, the atmosphere at Tynecastle, like I've already said, is going to be massively important in that game. And that will then roll on to the Dundee United game. If we turn up against Pilsen, we put in a performance and we win, you'll get people that will go, oh, it's papering over the cracks. You'll get people that will go, great, this is the start of the season now, let's go. And you'll get people that will just be happy, obviously, with the European progression. If we lose against Pilsen, even though we're in the Conference League anyway, you'll still get people going, it's not good enough, it's not acceptable, this is shocking. And then it's the toxicity that follows from that. But yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. And I think Thursday night is a big moment for us. And I think, being, like I said, being at home is a big bonus. And we have to use that. And again, against Dundee United, we have to use that too, because they've just obviously come up. They don't look bad. So it'll be a tough match, but I hope being back at Tynecastle gives the players a bit of confidence to say, right, last time we were here, we got a decent draw against Rangers. Let's try and put in a show again.
Absolutely. And just to kind of wrap things off on that, I would like to have your prediction for both the Pilsen and the Dundee United game. But if they're not both the wins, don't bother giving it.
Pilsen. I'm going to go for a Hearts win because why not? We've been an absolute shitter recently, so I'm going to go for a morale boosting win out of nowhere because it just seems to be what we do. A paper over the cracks victory. I'm going to go for Hearts to win 2-0. That's what I'm going for. Don't know where I'm getting the clean sheet from, but you never know. And against Dundee United, I am going to go for a sneaky 2-1 win for the Hearts.
Okay.
Season starts on Thursday. That's what it is.
Let's hope you're right. I will also go for a 2-0 win against the Pilsen, provided we've got both Gordon and Xander Clark in goal. And for the United game, I might just go for one of my more outrageous scorelines, as I used to do back in the day. I'm going to go for a 4-1 win, Hearts. That's where the season starts, a 4-1 win. Where Shanklin will actually come back, and then, as you said, the season begins there. But as always, guys, we would love to hear all your score predictions for the Pilsen and the United game as well. Any thoughts you've had on what we've talked about as well? What do you think needs to be sorted out or fixed in the current lineup or setup that we have? And just all your thoughts in general, guys. So, as always, thank you very much for watching this episode of the Since I Was Young podcast. We do greatly appreciate it, guys. And as always, if you want to check out our socials as well, they will be on screen and in the description as usual. So, for everybody going to the Pilsen game on Thursday, we do hope you have a good one, and we will see you next time. You all take care. Bye for now. Nice one, Alan. Nice one.